There are secrets about my life that have been untold. I'd swore I would take them to my grave. But things have changed. Recently, I discovered an old story from 2010 and realized that I wasn't alone in the world. I learned that someone else had an experience much like my own. Most importantly, I discovered that perhaps I wasn't as crazy as I thought I was. So that's it. Coming forward with my story. I've typed it all out so I can look at everything that transpired and analyzed what really happened to me. And I've gone over it and over it and over it, and finally I'm ready to put my voice behind it. I'm going to post this all online to serve as a warning to everyone else so they don't make the same mistakes that I did. Perhaps, maybe even some of you will listen to this and be able to help me. Perhaps I can be saved from the situation that I had thought I would be trapped in forever. It all started with an odd package that arrived to my apartment. I was a sophomore in college. I had decided the semester earlier to stop being an English major because I didn't have a passion to write in coffee shops, and I rather enjoyed not being broke. I was thinking of going into healthcare despite having the interpersonal skills of a brick. Luckily, I decided on a healthcare track that didn't require a lot of interpersonal skills. Psychiatry. Nailed it. Anyway, back to the package. Let's focus on that. That was foreshadowing for this section of the story. It's precisely why I was too good for the English department, and they were all fools. Package was so bizarre because it was clearly a cardboard box surrounded by plain brown paper, all tied together with old white string. It looked like someone's concept of what a package looked like 100 years ago, not a modern package from Amazon. Who the hell is Ben? I remember asking aloud, looking at this strange package in my hand as my eyes caught the name on the return address. Just the first name, no last name. No address either, just Ben in the upper left corner of this strange little package. Address itself was correct. It's also clearly my name, my real name, Chad Dingleton, written in block letters across the middle of the package. I'd never known of any other Chad Dingleton, not after what my great-grandfather did, and certainly none at my exact address. Clearly this package was for me. I pressed my ear to the package to make sure there wasn't a ticking noise. I know these weren't the Bush years anymore, where everyone was mailing terrorist bombs and anthrax to everybody else, but old habits die hard, and I figured I'd rather be safe than sorry. Besides, Obama had only been in office for like 9 months, and he needed more time to fix all the world's problems, like terrorism. So until he could do that, I would need to protect myself. But I knew that any day now, he would be closing down Guantanamo, pulling us out of Iraq and Afghanistan, and usher in an age of world peace. It's any moment now. Any moment. So after I was satisfied that I wouldn't die from opening the package, I decided to just go for it. Normally I put these packages in a big pile of other packages and just ignore them for several days before realizing that I needed one of the things I had ordered. But this one, it called to me. At the time I assumed it was just due to how strange it was, but now I'm not so sure. Tearing it open revealed a plain cardboard box, as I suspected, but also a handwritten note by Ben. The note has since been destroyed for reasons that will become apparent. I remember the gist of it, however. It was addressed to me directly, as if Ben had been a close personal friend.
Dear Mr. Dongletown, I chanced to encounter an unhoused identifying child at the library. He implied that you may be susceptible to cursed games. He added that you have a particular fondness for Windwalker. He then gave me your name, address, social security number, and your mother's maiden name. I used them to open an American Express card, and with it purchased the enclosed materials from a sorcerer on eBay. I trust that they find you juicy and well. Take care of your flesh. Love, Ben. P.S. Don't try to play the game without the memory card. You need the memory card.
He said he heard through a mutual friend that I recently found my old GameCube. Jet black, the best kind. That I was in the market for some of the classic games of that system. Ben wanted to help round out my collection with one of my favorite GameCube games, The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. I was perplexed that anybody would give away such a great game to a total stranger. The game was worth at least $30 or $40. That was until I opened the package to find a knockoff GameCube hardshell case. Inside the case was a tiny GameCube CD, except it was blank, with the words Zelda Wind Waker written in Sharpie. And it made sense. It was a bootleg. Probably ripped it from a torrent site or something and burned it onto a GameCube CD. Didn't explain why it had been sent to me, but it did explain why Ben didn't want it anymore. It also came with a memory card for the system, one of those nice 1019 block cards. It was an official Nintendo memory card, not some cheapo knockoff or store brand junk. Oddly, someone had gone the extra distance to engrave a name in the blank spot on the top of the card. Ben, obviously. Thanks a lot, Ben, I remember saying aloud before tossing the case into a nearby stack of junk mail. I was pretty certain that if I put this into my GameCube, it would melt. Or explode. Or spin so fast it would shoot off like a razor disc and slice me in half. Some other stupid thing. At a bare minimum, I assumed it wouldn't boot up. So why even bother? So there the game sat for many days. Didn't pay it much mind. I had classes to go to and women to not date. Didn't have time to indulge in the Wind Waker, and even if I did, I wouldn't have played that particular disc when I had the original game already. Yet I didn't throw it out. I kept telling myself it was because I wanted to sell it to a second-hand store for store credit. But now, after everything that's happened, I think maybe there's something more going on with that game. Something darker, more sinister. Also, I was really lazy and my apartment was kind of a mess anyway. So a week or two goes by. Game sits there on my counter. Catches my eye a few times every day. I chuckle to myself. The game's place on my counter did have one effect on me. I really wanted to play Wind Waker again. And hey, fall break was coming up at the end of the week. So I decided, what better time than now? Obviously, I wasn't going to use this shady-looking bootleg. I already had a copy of the game. It was in my closet. Or not. Maybe I never unpacked it when I moved into the apartment? It's not there either. Despite not having a GameCube, or a Wii for that matter, for a few years now, I still had a decent collection. I swear I had a copy. Heck, I may have even had my friend's copy too by accident. That's 2 copies, and neither were anywhere to be found. Made a trip over to my parents' place and started tearing through my old room. Closet, cabinet, even under the bed. Nothing. My 2 copies were nowhere to be found. I was able to locate a bunch of my old games, but Wind Waker was conspicuously absent. Felt defeated. Crushed. Sure, I could torrent a copy off the internet, but the last time I did that, I clicked the wrong thing and ended up bricking my computer. I could go to the local GameStop, but I wasn't able to get hired there, and I was a little salty about that still. Did have a local game store, which I decided to check out, but came up empty. Seriously? I'm gonna have to play this bootleg. It was either that or try to grow some social skills and get into the dating scene. Wind Waker it is. Set up my GameCube. Plugged all the composite cables into the big-ass box that we used to call a TV. I opened the cheap plastic case and retrieved the bootleg. As I shut the case, something caught my eye. Curious, I opened the case again to find the folded receipt. Don't recall it being there before, and the ink of the receipt was faded. In big Sharpie wires on the back of the receipt, it read, "Must use memory card for game to work properly." That's right. That was in that letter, too. Alright. Fine. So, get the memory card, get the disc. I think Ben, whoever you are, is going to look at the memory card anyway, but now I have no choice if I want to play my game. Rolled my eyes one last time before slapping the card into slot A and putting the bootleg disc into the machine. I remember pausing a moment, not sure if I should actually boot it up, but curiosity gave way and I pressed the on button. My GameCube made a grinding noise immediately. I turned the system off, popped it open, looked at the disc. Nothing. No scratches. I was a little paranoid because my Xbox 360 cut a big, ugly circle of scratches real deep into several of my discs, destroying them forever. But this one? Completely unscathed. Alright. Put the disc back into the system, booted it up. Same thing. Scratchy was loud and annoying. I let it run a little longer, sure that it was just getting shredded in my machine. A few minutes later, I checked the disc. Nothing again. GameCube also looked unscathed. Maybe bootlegs just did this? I don't know. What I do know is that the bootleg worked as expected, despite the scratching noises. Soon I was greeted with the familiar, jaunty tune of the Wind Waker's opening theme. I pressed start and was greeted with the Save Select screen. There was already a save file in File 3. Ben. Weird that he wouldn't delete it, but okay, I thought. Looked at Ben's progress by selecting his file. He had the first 2 pearls, so he wasn't very far into the game yet. His death count was 069. Real mature. Grow up, Ben. Whoever you are. How long must it have taken him to get that death count? Anyway. I made my own save file. Called myself Nate so as to hide my identity. I booted the game up. Played for several hours. The grinding of the disc never really went away, but there didn't appear to be any damage to either it or my machine, so I tuned it out after a while. Beat the first boss, got Din's Pearl, and saved my game, and quit for the evening. Everything seemed alright with this grindy bootleg. Occasionally the NPCs would call me Ben instead of Nate. I assumed there was something wrong with where the game was pulling my name from in its memory. Since it's a cheap knockoff, maybe that's just what knockoffs did. I remember during this time that I had gone out to see my friend. He had just finished being homeless for a week, which is to say he was camping inside of a library for about 3 days until he was booted out by the staff. Then he just went back to his parents' house, where he normally lived. Something about learning what it was really like to be homeless in this day and age, or whatever. Called him an idiot for this, and we argued about it before. Sorry, I went off on a tangent. Fuck that guy is my point. Oh, and as he pertains to the story, this was the friend that Ben had referenced in his letter as a mutual friend. When When I asked him about this, he said he didn't know who Ben was, which I thought was kind of strange. He didn't know how Ben knew him or knew that I had just broken out the old GameCube. I asked if he had been terrible at keeping shit to himself again, a running theme, though this particular thing didn't really matter. He assured me he didn't, then started talking about how he's no longer the jealous type, or some shit regarding his most recent relationship, and lamenting that he broke up with his high school sweetheart 3 years ago, despite having numerous girlfriends since then, so I just kind of tuned him out. Man, reading those last 2 paragraphs back, only the not knowing Ben thing seems relevant to this story, now that I think about it. Fuck that guy. Anyway, I asked a few of my other friends, and nobody knew who Ben was. Weird. That night I went home and went to sleep. I had an incredibly vivid dream. So vivid that I remember it this many years later. I was on the King of the Red Lions. For those of you who don't know the Wind Waker, that's the ship in the game. And also, you're a Luddite. I was sailing in a horribly monstrous storm. No enemies buffeted my ship, but the enemy music from Wind Waker was blaring in my head. Rain and wind beat my face as I attempted to keep my tiny ship afloat. No matter which way I looked, the inky ocean stretched out in all directions. No land or tiny refuge stuck out above the waterline. Lightning exploded in the sky, highlighting large shapes in the distance I couldn't quite make out. Eyes. I woke up in a sweat. Panicked, my heart pounding in my chest. My back was killing me too, and I came to the realization I was on my couch. A controller was in my hand, and my TV and my GameCube were on, grinding away at the disc inside. I was playing Wind Waker. At the time, I thought I'd fallen asleep with the game in hand, but I don't remember sitting down and playing it. What's more, as I was now in the Forbidden Woods, the second dungeon, a bit further into the game from where I remembered stopping. I remember it was eerily quiet. Right as I thought that, the grinding from inside the GameCube started again. Chalked it up to maybe just not paying attention at the time. My attention, instead, was focused upon those black, soulless eyes of Link. Looked like he was just looking directly at me through the TV. Hairs on my neck stood up straight. Rigid. I couldn't look away. Then he winked at me. I swear it's true. He's not supposed to be able to do that. I got up and I must have hit my control stick because Link moved and the game started behaving like normal. But I was done. The whole thing left a sour taste in my mouth. Figuratively, not literally. Shut the game off. Took the disc out. Put it back in its case. For some reason I decided to go the extra distance and unplug my console and plug my 360 back in. I wanted to play Xbox Live anyway. I was done reliving the nostalgia of my youth, which, to be fair, kind of sucked. I mean, I had a crush on a girl from the South and was friends with a guy who would eventually pay me $20 to leave his house. Real 0 out of 10 is what I'm saying. Wind Waker, much like my youth, can kiss my ass. The rest of the day I tried my best not to think about the experience in much the same way I try not to think about anything prior to my becoming 25 years of age. It was subtle. But every few hours those eyes would creep back into my head. Suddenly as they'd come, I'd wave them out of my mind. If everything had ended here, I'd put this whole thing to rest. I'd talk about how I pawned that disc onto some sucker for $10 on eBay, and I'd be in a much better place. But that night, I had another fitful sleep. I tossed and turned until finally I fell right off the couch onto the floor. Why was I on the couch? Why was the game back on? The Forbidden Woods had been beaten. I was sailing toward Great Fish Isle. A pit dropped in my stomach when I approached the destroyed island. This is the part of the game where the world is plunged into eternal night and a never-ending storm until you progress. Normally, I thought this part was pretty awesome, but with the strangeness of everything going on, I was filled with dread. My palms were sweating, my knees felt weak, my arms were heavy. I didn't want to continue. I wheeled myself off the floor and went to turn off the system, only to find the GameCube wasn't even plugged in. Link looked at me again, shook his head back and forth. I was trapped. I had to do this. I set sail for Windfall Island. I knew you had to get the bombs to blow open a hidden cave to progress the game, but Windfall Island never came. I sailed and sailed and sailed. The storm was raging in the black of night. There were no islands in sight. The temperature in my living room chilled. I became very aware of my breathing. I wanted to throw myself, literally throw myself from that game console. I searched and searched, but no landmasses poked above the sea. The music to indicate an enemy was nearby played non-stop, but nothing ever surfaced to attack. I kind of wished it would. Storms crackled and exploded against the sky. Dark shapes moved in the distance. I couldn't make them out, but there was something massive out there. This time I didn't see an eye or anything, but I could feel that whatever it was looking at me. Finally, the boat stopped on its own. None of my buttons worked. This was the end of the line. I scrolled the camera around. King of the Red Lion's eyes were pure white, just like they are in the post-credits. He was dead. Then Link pointed at something. Shouldn't have been able to do that. But it was the least worrying thing about what was happening tonight. I knew what it was the moment I saw it. It was a dark lump that slowly drifted towards the boat. It was a body. It was Ben. Ben drowned. Link's head turned 180 degrees and looked at me. Text on the screen said, "You killed Ben!" And I don't remember anything but a searing white-hot pain boring into my skull. My apartment vanished from view. All I could see was white. I heard a sound in the distance and realized it was me, and I was screaming. If you got this far, and you believe my totally true story, then know that I didn't want to do what I did next. I didn't want it to happen. I can't repeat it here because it's actionable. Just know that I woke up with the worst headache of my life, with dried blood out of every orifice in my head and nails. Ben had tried to put his soul in my body through a cursed Wind Waker game disc after he drowned. A piece of him stayed within me for years. That's why our dynamic is so good. I need you to know, I never drowned anyone named Ben. That's a lie. Has to be a lie. But I did help him get a new body. That's all I can say about that. I'm not proud of what I did, but I'm not going to jail. But I know how to beat him now. I know his weakness. Ben drowned. And in drowning, that's how he got his power. Somehow. So you know what we need to defeat him? Something that can't drown. Something that floats upon the waves that would neutralize his power. We need a yacht. So to anyone who reads or listens to this story, I implore you, we have to defeat Ben. God help me, I wasn't strong enough, but with your help, we might be able to beat him together. You just have to go to the Words About Books Patreon and donate however much money you're able to. By our powers combined, we can buy that yacht. It's the only way we can cleanse Ben's soul and finally allow him to